get up with the sun, face the same 6 feet of prairie wheat. They're eating Cocoa Puffs and Fruit Loops up in River Heights. Just another thing to eat and to beat. The days are long and so are the nights.
Our journey begins in 1965 in the north end of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. A working-class neighborhood, mostly good family people, but sometimes the sun just shines more brightly on some of its sons.
The sun also rises and sets on a north end neighborhood, and different fathers in this brotherhood.
Everybody worked at CPR. Everybody had a lunch bucket, and it was like clockwork. 8 o'clock in the morning, they started, the whistle went off. 4:30, the whistle went, everybody walked home. Yeah. Nobody drove, everybody walked.
A working class part of town, so, you know, nobody had really too much.
We lived in a little shanty with a dugout in the basement for the furnace and the root cellar. An old wood stove in the kitchen, and the living room had an oil-burning stove.
There was 5 of us, my brother, myself, and my 2 sisters, pardon me, 6 of us. My family is actually fairly large. There's 9 of us.
Where I lived, and that was the melting pot. Next door was a German fella, across the street was a Ukrainian.
I mean, you didn't have to speak English in the North End.
Well, the Canadian Polish Athletic Club, CPAC, they sponsored our baseball team. Good people, they just wanted to help kids in the neighborhood play sports. Didn't matter what ethnic group you were from. So our team was a total mix, or mongrel, I guess it would be.
In those days, people put milk bottles out, glass milk bottles with money on top, for the milkman to come and drop off milk and take the money. Well, one of the kids took the money and was all happy. We had 15 cents or something. And the guy we were talking about earlier, he made him take that money back, because there might be children in the house that need milk.
From that scrappy mix of income and ethnic groups, a baseball team was born. No silver spoon in its mouth, no golden glove in its hands, or even a real bat to swing.
We played stickball in the streets. Never had a bat at first. Hockey stick, any kind of stick we could get, anything that was semi-round.
I was playing with my dad's glove that was 25 years old.
I remember my uniform was about 10 sizes too big. Even my family used to laugh at me. How can you run with pants like that? Big giant ones.
But we got a chance to play baseball for free in a well-organized league, and those uniforms were everything to us.
The gangs, they wear their colors. Well, our colors were our uniforms. Nobody ran and hid the children when we walked down the streets.
Other baseball teams didn't hide from these guys either. CPAC was the best of the best in a neighborhood house league in a city more well known for hockey, where summers are only 6 months long. Yet they were about to enter a tournament against the best of the best from all over Canada.
I played in that tournament 2 years myself. We thought we had good teams back then, and we made it 1, 2, or 3 games and get knocked out. We always knew who the powerhouses were in Manitoba, and Brandon, Riverview, teams like that.
We were underdogs for sure.
We were just somebody that you never expected to do that well.
I just think that they really didn't want us to succeed.
They opened against a team from the suburbs. It was CPAC against wealthy West Kildonan.
Well, we brought our lunches to school in brown paper bags. They all used those metal lunch boxes with pictures of the Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew on the side.
Well, they may have had better uniforms, and our caps didn't even match, but it's all in how you play the game.
I remember the West Kildonan game really well because I pitched in the game. We were up 5-0, and it was close to completion. I remember about an inning before, you could see the clouds coming in, and Rick was saying, really move, you gotta be fast. He was almost to the point where we wanted to get out on purpose, but he would never do that. It would have been, maybe we should have got out on purpose so we could have got the game in. It was kind of upsetting to me. I was three outs away from a no-hitter, and winning the game. And the skies just got black. We had to take shelter. There was lightning and everything else, so it just wasn't safe. We had to play them again the next morning.
Everyone that was there was upset because we'd have to replay the entire game again.
There was no really excuse for it. We played that many innings, they could have called it early.
It's a little bit disappointing. I mean, it's hard to comprehend, I guess as a 12-year-old, to understand why.
And I remember Rick's comments were, "It's okay, guys. We'll just beat them again tomorrow."
The next game didn't go so well for us. We were down 3-0 right off the start. We managed to chip away and tie it before the end of the game and won it in 3 extra innings, I think it was. 1 home run and we were gone. We would have been out of the tournament.
No use wondering whether affluence had undue influence over tournament confluence. CPAC was struggling. The players didn't even know each other's names, let alone how to play together. They managed to slip by a community center team from Winnipeg's West End by just a single run. But then it looked like deja vu all over again for Coach Rick McGill.
We always knew who the powerhouses were in Manitoba. In Riverview,
Riverview, a quiet enclave of stately homes, parks, schools, churches, and a fabulous community center, all nestled peacefully along the banks of the historic Red River.
We realized we were a little more fortunate than the people in the North End. We didn't think we were any better than them, but we just knew we were in a different economic situation than.
We've already seen that wealth alone does not a good ball player make, but there were plenty of other factors favoring Riverview.
They had won their first 2 games by 37 runs, so we knew they had power.
But we were the best team in the city. For Playground C, which when you're 10, Playground B, 11, and Playground A when you're 12. And 2 of those 3 years, we were the city champions. So we were always used to being one of the better teams.
As intimidating as that sounds, Hilton is actually talking about the Riverview hockey team. And if you excelled at Canada's national sport, America's pastime was a piece of cake.
The guys that played hockey, that played baseball.
Meanwhile, the CPAC kids still hadn't learned each other's names, let alone their teammates' tendencies on the field of play. They were about to face a group of 12-year-olds who'd been a team since they were 10. But CPAC had a secret weapon.
Back in those days, most Little League pitchers threw as hard as they could. Very few threw sliders, curves. I was lucky. Sam McGill, Rick's father, he taught me how to throw curves and strikes. And then I met this baseball fanatic.
We had an elementary school teacher, Mr. Johansson.
He had Neil and I throw curves and drops all winter long with a softball. Not only did this build up our arm strength, if you could make that big softball dance, you could make a little hardball do the jig.
You saw fastballs, but you never saw curveballs that almost hit you and then broke over the plate and stuff that we weren't used to. We're striking out probably a lot. We weren't getting many hits. Certainly, we were just maybe getting ground balls and stuff.
He would throw a curve, and the poor kid in the batter's box would be like bailing. He'd be throwing the bat, ducking down, think he's going to be hit, and then he'd look up straight, and he'd have this incredulous look on his face, looking at the ump going, "Strike, he almost hit me." No, he didn't.
We were always coming back to the bench and we were getting instruction from our coaches of, I think, move up on the plate and, don't stand back, try to get it before it does curve.
These guys would bail and strike.
What? It was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It moved quickly, incredibly quickly. It's like 3 up, 3 down. Hardly anyone got on base. The score was 1-0.
This was small ball. Scratch out a hit, advance the runner, and hope like heck to get him home. And Riverview set up that very play very late in the game.
Well, it's 1-0, bottom of the 6th. We get a guy on base.
It cannot get any more dramatic than this. Riverview trailing CPAC 1-0 with 2 out in the bottom of the 6th and final inning. But Riverview has managed to get a runner to second base.
And the ball was hit out.
I was the little fat kid that played in the field. He figured he could go from second, round third, and take home on a line drive hit out to my field. No.
It's coming, I'm looking, come on, get him.
And the guy ran in from third.
Took a step out, caught the ball, dove back across the plate and blocked the plate.
Slid. We thought he was safe. we were called out,
their coaching staff went crazy. They were up in arms and the parents were screaming and everybody was making this big thing. The call stood, out, we won the game.
we're eliminated. I don't know if we expected to win the tournament, but we expected to go longer than 3 games in the tournament, and all of a sudden, it's over.
They were one of the teams to pick to win the whole city championship, and they were rolling over other teams before then and had done so all year.
And then we played game 3 of that tournament. We ended up playing CPAC. And the disappointment, I mean, look, I'm 59. I mean, that's a long time ago, and I still remember.
The kids from CPAC had no time to celebrate their narrow, dramatic win over Riverview because replaying the entire game against West Kildonan had put them behind in their schedule. They had to scramble to jam in their next game, and for this team, just getting to the game was a scramble.
I didn't have a car. I was 19 years old. We took buses, we walked, we scrounged up mothers, whatever that would come along with a car, get us there somehow.
It was like herding cats.
And waiting for these cats was another perennial favorite to win the Little Canadian Championship. Mandak, which was short for Manitoba and North Dakota combined, featured the best from both sides of the border. That team was on an international road trip, but their bus arrived at the site for Game 4 in plenty of time.
I remember some of us were tumbling off a city bus. We're running after Rick, and Rick's running around looking to see what diamond we're playing on. It was like Keystone Cops Junior Division. But then luckily, Rick's mom pulled up 6 or 7 players in the back seat of her, 57 Chevy.
That effort to keep track of each other had an unexpected benefit.
You could see the confidence building in the kids. The team coming together, calling each other by name.
The further you advance along the tournament trail, the tougher the opposition gets. You need a bit more than getting to know you to get by. Perhaps another secret weapon. CPAC had just that, and it came from an unlikely source. 19-year-old Rick McGill was just getting to know how to coach, but what appeared to be a disadvantage was indeed a tremendous asset.
I was a student of the game. You know, I studied ball. I knew from the time I was a little kid. I knew every baseball player's average from the time of Honus Wagner up through, didn't matter what year it was.
Rick McGill was sort of the master. He had this uncanny ability.
I could look at a batter and say, pitch him on tight on the hands, low and outside, fastball on the knees, and that's where Grant would put it. And every so often throw in that little curveball he had, and he'd have guys swinging that air.
So we didn't have your normal catchers giving signals to the pitcher. I would look over at the dugout. Rick would give me a signal. I would signal back to the catcher the pitch that was coming to warn him whether it was going to be a drop or curve or whatever it may have been. I always wondered if teams would ever pick up on that, but I don't think they ever did.
Other coaches, mostly parents of one of their team's players, also didn't pick up on the idea they could be out-coached by a teenager.
They aren't students of the game. They come out, and to their credit, they want to be involved. In all the years I coached, I had a few parents who worked with me that knew what they were doing.
In the end, CPAC dominated the international skirmish with the Can-Am combination by doubling up the mix of Yankees and Canucks 6-3.
The kids were very unsure when we started that tournament.
We were just somebody that you never expected to do that well. But we didn't do that well, we did really well.
You just didn't feel like you could lose.
CPAC was on a roll, and it was time to roll the dice. In Little League, pitchers are restricted to a certain number of innings, and once again, that jammed-up schedule had young coach McGill scrambling. Once again, the teenager had made preparations which belied his tender years.
If you plan on going any distance in the tournament, you have to have enough pitchers to get through. So you're looking to probably carry 8 to 10 pitchers, or kids capable of pitching.
I grew up surviving like everybody else survived, and I had dreams, and some of my dreams were baseball. I wanted to be a musician.
Tony was 11 years old. Tony was the youngest kid in the team, and was big, tall, had amazing speed, had no idea where it was going.
I just remember the one game I pitched where the team was, I heard the guys, I actually overheard the bench saying, "Holy cow, this guy is crazy."
He was a good pitcher, but he had that enough wildness that guys were on their heels every time they were up to bat against him.
So sad, because when I went into a windup, you did not see the ball.
You didn't have to call Tony's pitches. It was always going to be a fastball down the middle, try and get around on it.
It so happened that it was probably our easiest game in the whole trail towards the Canadian Championship. We'd won 7-0, and Tony Began had a great game pitching. He had his shutout. His fastball was working that day.
An old nemesis surfaced for young Rick McGill in the showdown for the Manitoba Provincial Championship.
We always knew who the powerhouses were in Manitoba, and Brandon, Riverview, teams like that, the South End teams. Brandon because they had such a great catchment area.
CPAC, from a small neighborhood in the north end of Winnipeg, was representing Manitoba's largest city against the province's second largest city.
They played tournaments before, during, and after. We never played a tournament until we got to that championship.
And unlike CPAC, Brandon breezed into the championship final, an example of just how deep the roster was.
Realized we didn't have enough pitchers to make it through all the games, so in our second game we used a right fielder, a guy named Terry Kindrat. He wound up pitching a perfect game.
Okay, another powerhouse. But perhaps all the adversity the CPAC kids had to overcome could instead become the great equalizer? The controversial calls, the close calls, the hectic pace of their schedule. Their experience, both on and off the field, had created a scrappy team of survivors. But a one-game showdown for baseball bragging rights in an entire province is a whole nother thing. Huge crowds, massive media coverage, strange surroundings.
Compared to other diamonds where you just have, a 2x4, a couple of 2x4 planks as benches.
Well, Pioneer Park was like a field of dreams.
You look around, right? There was dugouts. Never been in a dugout before. Hitting a home run over the wall, not just over some guy's head. He runs out and gets it in the field.
And everybody copes differently.
Oh, well, I was kind of oblivious to it all. I remember I was more motivated by a promise we'd get free soft drinks if we made it to the provincial final. Ice cold soda pop, not water, not even Kool-Aid.
You just kind of block it out, because I'm kind of close to that being the catcher anyway, so you're hearing a lot of this stuff. So if I had to hear everything, it would be somewhat confusing.
I never really heard people yelling and screaming when I play, because I don't hear anything. It doesn't matter what I do. I focused always on the game.
Actual soda pop in a big metal box I later learned was a cooler. I remember I inhaled 3 or 4 of them before the game even started because they were free. I didn't get sick or anything, but I sure had to take a whiz by the 3rd or 4th inning.
It all came down to a couple of very good teams featuring the best 12-year-old baseball players on the Canadian prairies. And the capacity crowd in Pioneer Park witnessed an epic showdown, the most exciting game in Canadian Little League baseball history.
The score was really tight. Nobody was getting a lot of extra base hits or anything of that sort, and I feel the tension going as the game went on.
We pick things up at the top of the 3rd inning. CPAC Winnipeg has eked out a 2-1 lead over Brandon. So far, it's been a taut defensive struggle that could be decided by just one big play. And the next batter up for CPAC could provide just that.
When I go up at the plate and I'm told to hit away, that means hit, and I hit.
And he swung from the boot.
He just plastered a ball over the left field fence.
And it went over that fence as quickly as it came to the plate.
He did what he does.
I remember when he hit that ball, that thing was out of there in no time. It was a liner.
That ball came in, I hit it.
I remember Anthony's run around the bases.
As a baseball wannabe, I tried to mimic the players, and they cut the bases. You don't stomp on the middle of a base because that slows your run down. You hit the corners.
One of us was keeping score because we used to take turns, if you remember, keeping score in the book, and Anthony, another home run.
He goes back to the dugout.
We're sitting on the bench, we're all happy.
I remember our coach coming out, yelling to our pitcher, get the ball, take the rubber. Ball put in play by the umpire. Catcher throws it to the pitcher. He's looking over at the coach, not really knowing what's going on. The coach says, go tag him.
And I'm called out. I was in shock.
They said he didn't touch home plate.
I can't see that happening, especially with Anthony. If you know Anthony, he's a pretty serious guy. He's going to touch home plate.
It would not be normal to miss it for any player.
Tony believes, I think, to this day that he stepped on home base.
Who doesn't touch home plate? How do you miss home plate for that matter?
The umpire raising his right arm saying, "You're out."
He wasn't 100% sure I touched the plate.
And then chaos. And a big argument at home plate.
Oh my, this could get ugly. They're taking down the run. The kids from CPAC thought they'd scored, and it's going to stay 2-1. CPAC's lead remains just a single run.
The umpire was not alert and did not watch. His doubt created the problem. He wasn't 100% sure I touched the plate. When he got challenged, he went with the challenge.
Umpires make mistakes. They can be manipulated and intimidated. You know, coach goes into his Hollywood acting routine. He starts screaming and hollering. He's pleading his case. He's pointing at home plate and claiming the runner missed it. So maybe the umpire doesn't want to get into a big fight. Maybe he missed the call and he thinks everybody else saw it. There was a huge crowd watching the game. And I'm not saying that what I said just happened. I'm just saying.
Don Reddy would never have done that. That's the first and only time I ever saw him make that call, which is why we didn't know what was going on when he made it.
I've done professional sports as a photographer, and I've seen coach stunts done and get away with them over the years. All the power to him. He got it, he did it, and that was fine.
They said there's no way on the planet Don Reddy would have pulled anything like that. He was a very honorable guy, cared about the kids, cared about baseball.
I didn't see it. I was on first base coaching. Don Reddy said he missed it, and I couldn't argue it. I went to the umpire. I remember going to the umpire and asking him, "Did you see him miss the plate?" And he said yes. He didn't touch the plate.
It was an important run in a close game. It could have been devastating to us. Rick talked to us and said, "Just keep on playing the way you guys are playing."
We were still up 2-1. Just told them to calm down. They went out in the field. They were still, you could just see it in their eyes. They were still upset over it. But you know, then again, they didn't score that inning. So next inning, so it was by then they'd settle down again by the end of the inning.
I felt we had to get back at him.
We weren't done yet.
Turned around and said, "Screw that. It doesn't matter to me. Wait till I come back the next time."
So we went back out there and we didn't lose focus.
CPAC managed to hold on to that one-run lead until, well, wouldn't you just know it, the way things were going for CPAC in this tournament? The bottom of the sixth and supposedly final inning, when the boys from Brandon scrambled back to tie the score at 2-all. Now Brandon had the all-important Big Mo, as in momentum, while the kids from CPAC had to be thinking back to that disallowed home run in the third inning.
That would have been the game-winning run.
The Prairie Championship final between CPAC Winnipeg and Brandon went into 3 innings of extra play, both teams struggling to score that single run, which appeared would be the only margin of victory that would decide this epic struggle between 2 very talented and evenly matched teams. We pick up play in the top half of what would become the final inning.
Dickie Ruggles came up and hit a beautiful hit into the field, and I scored from second base. And we went up 1, but that wasn't the end of the game. We had to sweat a bit in that last, the bottom of the ninth.
Well, I got myself into a bit of a jam, I guess. I ended up loading the bases.
And we had none out.
A single or a walk would tie the score, and any extra base hit would win the game for Brandon, and they still have 3 batters left.
I remember going out and talking to Neil at that point, and I remember basically he said, I asked him how he felt. He said, "Fine." I said, "Okay, it's your game, so get him out."
I guess I like drama.
Neil dug down, and he seemed to get himself in those situations quite a bit.
Well, I don't do it on purpose.
He always seemed to come back and get himself out of it. He had that amazing way of getting guys to pop out.
You throw the ball the way you've been throwing all year.
2 pop outs, and now we're 2 outs. We're 1 out away from winning it all, but that wasn't the end of the game.
Next batter up was turned out to be their big hitter.
The last inning, I remember our big home run hitter, Paul Solon, up, last out, last inning, people on base.
Holy cow, Paul Solon really got a hold of this one. It's drifting way back. A grand slam home run here in the bottom of the 9th will clear the bases and give Brandon a dramatic 6-3 victory.
A long ball, we thought it was gone.
I remember thinking, it's going out, it's going out.
Fell a foot short.
And it fell just short.
Fortunately, into the glove of our fielder.
No, the ball lands runs right into the CPAC fielder's glove. He's out, and CPAC wins it 3-2.
Game over.
All our players came running out of the dugout. The players in the field all were running to congratulate each other. Dougie West came out from behind home plate, jumping up and down. I remember Dougie jumping up and down.
Disappointed, of course, but it was 3 extra innings. It was a heck of a baseball game.
And we're going to go on to the Little Canadian Baseball Championships.
I think keep thinking of that little train that can. You know, the choo-choo, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it.
Before we go to bed or even laying in bed at night, I would go through like the whole gameplay, bases loaded. What would I do? Would I throw this? If the ball gets hit to me, what do I do? And all of a sudden, sometimes I'd throw and I'd overthrow, a run would score. Then I'd go over and I'd throw and I would get the guy out. You know, in reality, you didn't see the bad play. You only saw the good play.
Practicing in the gym during the wintertime, you couldn't take full swings. So we were practicing bunting all the time.
The kids were prepared to dive in front of balls and make plays.
Because I was being the bat boy, I was always close to first base, so I used to watch how they were playing. So
Kids are maybe a little scrappier.
you got to protect the base. And if you do make an error, if you hit him with your hip, he's not going to get up. He's going to run to second.
I was always out at the park playing baseball.
The ball had been bouncing their way, but you have to be good to be lucky, and this disparate group had now come together as a team. But no team from Manitoba, no matter how special, had won the Little Canadian Championship. That honor almost routinely went to British Columbia, the only province in Canada where you can play baseball year-round. The future home of Larry Walker, Justin Morneau, and Brett Lowry, Little League teams from BC had squared off with teams from Manitoba in this championship final 9 times, and BC won all 9 times. Any team from Canada's West Coast would be an obvious heavy favorite to make it 10 straight. But first, they all had to deal with the hoopla.
It was a big deal. I mean, I remember seeing the ads in the paper.
We went for lunch, and for us to go out for lunch was like a huge thing. We're going for lunch. Yeah, I love this.
You know, I was told to make these guys feel at home. Put a hot dog in one guy's ear. And
After hot dogs on the bus, a gala luncheon was held in the pavilion at Assiniboine City Park.
The last thing you want to put in front of a 12-year-old, especially a kid from the North End, is some fancy salad with foul-smelling cheese and black olives. And the meat they served, it was real fancy. It was covered in some kind of rich sauce, but it smelled suspicious. And one of our guys, though, he's Catholic. He says, you know, we're not supposed to eat meat on Fridays. Before long, there was about 8 of us instant Catholics wolfing down some fine fish and chips the chef had to prepare special for us.
It was kind of scary in the beginning for us.
I mean, we had crowds that could hardly, hard to believe. Crowds behind the home run fence.
We used to have a half a dozen people watch our games normally back at CPAC.
Some of the people in the neighborhood, because it was a nice summer night, just to walk around, or be walking their dog, and there's a big ball game. Let's go watch the ball game for a bit.
And they did the photo. All the executives were lined up across the back of the back row of the photo. I was sort of pushed off of the on the outside. Where did all these guys come from, and who are they?
Overwhelming, I guess you could say, at that age, with someone that was actually broadcasting the names of the players.
When the announcer come out and they mention your name, like, I mean, now all these people know me.
I remember going up to bat, trying to look all cool and confident, and then I hear this booming voice. And now batting for CPAC, second baseman Don Boreski. And, it was like the voice of God. I mean, I totally lost it. That just made the crowd more big, and the Richmond pitcher got more huge. And I think I grounded out or something.
And I think we came out really nervous. We made a couple of early errors and errors we would normally not make.
Richmond jumped into a 2-0 lead, and the kids from CPAC went down 1-2-3. But then that ability to adapt the CPAC kids showed at lunchtime kicked in, and the boys from BC were soon done like dinner.
So we went back out there, and we didn't lose focus.
But the next time I got up, when I heard that PA announcer, I started, you know, strutting in North End style, going, yeah, that's how it should be. You know, just got to change the second part of that announcement. Last time, grounded out the third.
You know, we didn't get overconfident or cocky or anything. We just played each game one game at a time and kept things simple. It just happened that 14 kids who could play baseball really, really well were born in the same year in the same neighborhood.
It happens.
Second game is the one that I pitched.
It was a very tight game. It was 1-1, and it could have gone either way.
It was like deja vu all over again. I got myself in a bit of a pickle.
Fifth inning, tied 1-1, and Richmond got runners to second and third with none out.
Having been faced with that in the Brandon game, I felt somewhat comfortable because I knew what we did in the Brandon game, and I thought, well, we can get out of this.
Somehow somebody just felt was going to do something.
Began and Harmacy were throwing darts from the outfield. They nailed guys at home. The score could have easily been 3-1 for them.
And so the game remained tied, 1-1 down to the bottom of the sixth. 2 out, Richmond is 1 out away from forcing extra innings.
Patty Wozni was a tremendous player, great power.
Patty was coming up, and I think we probably had 2 outs.
And I just couldn't wait to get to the plate. And everything was a buzz. It was a tie game. And it doesn't get any tougher than that. And let's go.
While Wozni was waiting, some fans tried to help out in a North End kind of way.
And one of the executives comes down and he says, you know, you get a home run, I'll buy you a Coke.
Patty, hit a home run, I'll buy you a hot dog.
Another guy said to me, I'll give you $1. And all of a sudden I'm tallying all this stuff up there. I said, this is a pretty good deal. My brother came up to me, he says, well, what's happening? And I said, well, I'm going to hit it out of the park.
Other fans in the crowd of well over 1,000 weren't so confident because this time the elements were working against CPAC. But with the wind blowing in, Wozni simply borrowed a bigger bat, the one used by Bimbo Parisian, the biggest kid on the CPAC team.
You got to remember, like at home, I never had a bat that we used. I used the ones that my brother and those guys used. So I was used to using a bigger bat. When I hit that ball and I turned first base, I don't know if you remember Big George. He was the umpire out in left field. And I could see Big George out there swaying back and forth, as he always did. And he was watching.
Pat Wozni lifts a long, high fly ball to left, but will it have enough to clear the fence with that strong wind blowing in?
It had enough snow on it. I really hit it with Bimbo's bat there. I know my mother cried after I hit it. In the paper, in the Cloverdale or the Richmond paper, I had seen one of the papers there, and it said, boy hits home run for mom on her birthday. It was too bad that my dad couldn't be there.
We made sure that he stepped on home base. That was a magical night.
The rewards and accolades started pouring in, and the kids from CPAC felt unbeatable because, after all, they were undefeated. More challenges lay ahead, but for now it was time to savor the moment and take stock of what they had done.
They had a banquet, and the city of Winnipeg was there. They gave us little trophies, and that in itself was scary, just to be up in front of everybody else.
Ice cold soda pop, you know, not water, not even Kool-Aid.
Beat that, the ice cream, I mean, you can't beat that.
I remember I had a couple of boys of my own, and they went through a lot of sports, and they got a trophy for showing up. And I had my 2 little CPAC trophies. That's it? That's what you got? Just those 2 trophies for all your years? Well, I had one more, but they had like 50. And then I'd show them the crests I had. They'd laugh, eh?
Some of the CPAC players imagined much larger trophies would be in store when they represented Canada at the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. But unfortunately, the kids from CPAC were not eligible to play in Williamsport.
I wish we would have had our shot.
We probably had a good enough team to be competitive there. I'm not saying we would have won it.
The worst thing in the world is not knowing. I mean, it goes out there, you look back and you're saying, could we have?
I would have kicked ass.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. The CPAC team could only say they took on all comers and retired undefeated, the best team in about half of North America that year. But they managed to get one reward that was most important to them. Better than any trophy, this reward would last as long as they didn't outgrow their clothes.
The red jackets, if you wore a CPAC jacket of any kind of championship, it was a badge of honor.
You felt important when you had a CPAC jacket.
Our CPAC jackets, the red and white, it didn't get any better than that.
You got respect.
Yeah, and I wore mine until it fell off.
By the year 2012, almost 50 years since CPAC had accomplished what no other Little League team from Manitoba has done to this day. None of the guys talked about the battles they had fought and the war they had been through. These men from Winnipeg's North End played baseball, and they were winners for one magical season. Their heroes were the two teammates who are no longer with them. Neil McLean died much too young battling cancer. And Alan Giesbrecht became a true hero by trading in his red CPAC jacket for the red serge of Canada's Mounted Police to truly battle in the real war against crime.
I played fastball on a ladies' fastball team, and he and one of his friends coached the team. We had just transferred to Vegreville.
I was in the office about 3 in the afternoon. There was a fellow that had made a threat to his neighbors, and they reported that he was holding a shotgun at the time. We went in the house. Al Giesbrecht looked around the corner, and all of a sudden there was a loud bang.
One of the policemen was at the door and said that I had to come right away. Okay. They had done everything that they possibly could, and he had passed away. There are times when I look at my children, and I really, for them, more than for myself, I just really, really feel that they were cheated out of, a father who was extremely loving, who just loved them to death. He still had his trophy, and I still have the trophy that he won, and he had some newspaper articles, one with, him smiling in front of the camera, so it was obviously something that meant a great deal to him. With Al's participation in that team, and I know how proud he was of the fact that he had won, I think that probably made a huge difference in his life. And, always playing with his two little boys, Adam and Tony, threw them up in the air. He called them Booga 1 and Booga 2.
The kids from CPAC grew up to pursue careers, raise families, and look forward to grandchildren. These are the true heroes. There's no Hall of Fame for them or teams like CPAC, but maybe it's just like that famous philosopher said. Life is a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. For one summer at least, the boys from CPAC managed to eat the whole box.
Staying out of trouble? No, but yes, I am indirectly. But we still skate a couple of times a week. So. I play one day and ice my legs down for 2 days. My mother fed me those Polish steroids. Those pierogies.
Well, I can never point out where I grew up because both houses were a half. 6'8.5", Richard. 6'8.5".
I'm from the North End. What sign were you born under? Hotel.
He scored what could have been the winning run in the 3rd inning. Unidentified player hit a home run, but as he crossed home plate, he forgot to touch it, and the run was not counted.
Has he got your glasses? I thought they were his daughter's glasses.
Grant Bucharski. Bucharski started on the mound for CPAC, but he was replaced by Neil Avery in the 6th when he got tired. Chunky CPAC shortstop. Hey, Chunky, stand up for a second here. There's a dramatic home run, and there's the chunky little boy who hit the home run. Ruggles. Ruggles, who was the victim of 2 unfortunate errors, made up for his miscues at the plate by socking 3 singles. West and second baseman Don Boreski collected singles. Anyhow, Neil Avery was the pitcher in the 5th inning. Richmond had second and third with none out. But the youngster calmly set down the next 3 batters on 3 infield pop-ups. There you go.
Do I remember that? No.
No, I don't remember.
Nice
The knee I got a kneel on is the one I got to get done.
Suck it in.